think BMW engines can't last 300,000 miles? Think again. They can actually outlast your neighbor's Toyota Camry. Yes, I'm going to share a list of 5 of the most reliable BMW engines I would buy in a heartbeat. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
The first one's called the M30. It's called the Big Six. Inline 6, cast iron block, aluminum heads, single overhead cams, and a simple push rod setup. The M3 engine ranges from 150 to about 220 horsepower, and because it's an older drivetrain from many moons ago, it's simple. There's less technology. Turbocharging, throw that out the window, and direct injection, forget about it. Like any car with some age, a little bit of leakage comes from maybe a rear main seal, and any other pan gaskets or seal points are a possibility. Coolant leaks, also a possibility. Take care of those. They're simple. There's less piping, less hoses, and a really easy fix. Valve stem seal wear, of course, creates a little bit extra oil consumption, nothing too dramatic. Timing chain guides can potentially wear as well, but that usually comes with extremely high miles. Some of the older carbureted or fuel injection system could possibly need tuning, so there's a little bit of hands-on for the mechanic. Parts availability, also a little bit limited because these cars are getting older. And this engine was around for a long time, from 1968 all the way up to 1994, because it was such a staple in the naval. It was literally one of the best engines they've had, and why get rid of something that's so great? With over 300,000 miles or 500,000 kilometers, who doesn't want an engine to just keep on ticking? You can find these in the E28 5 Series, E24 6 Series, the E12 5 Series, E9 2800. So while I've personally had the experience of driving some of those earlier model 5 Series cars, I actually had one of my mechanic buddies many years ago had one, and he would not get rid of it. You couldn't tear the keys out of his bloody hands because he just wanted it. It was so easy to fix and maintain, and it just kept going and going and going. The next one is a true legend, the M54, which is a naturally aspirated inline 6-cylinder engine. You found it in a plethora of different BMWs, from the E46, 325, and 330s, which were legendary drivetrains, and even more amazing cars. The E39 5 Series, not necessarily including the M5, E60, also carried that engine. The Z4 and the X5 from earlier generations. Now, this come with both aluminum block and an aluminum head for lighter, more efficient performance. This was vastly better than the current direct injected systems we see today. Simpler to maintain, more reliable, slightly less fuel metering, so you're probably going to get less economy, but none of that really matters because it's reliable and it's simple to fix because it multi-port fuel injection systems. Forget the DI on these cars. Some of the main reasons it lasts so well is because it's not overly done with big technology, with all the variable valve, but a direct fuel injection turbocharging, that didn't hit the radar yet. These were straight, simple, reliable. All they needed was a little bit of maintenance. If you had a coolant leak, fix it, replace that pipe. If you had a gasket leak, change it. Other than that, it was a lot simpler car, and you can navigate your way under the hood like there's no tomorrow. But there were a few problems to consider. For example, cooling system failures. For example, the water pumps, thermostats. I've done a few of those myself on BMWs. Vano seals wear, rough idling, loss of low-end torque, poor performance, even up top when you lose the breathing because the timing's off kilter, occasional oil cooler and gasket leaks, idle control valve failures, and because it's not turbocharged, it had less torque. It meant it wasn't ideal for the bigger, more powerful vehicles. Heavier X5s and the larger vehicles, it was much more suited to the smaller vehicles, the 3 Series, maybe the 5 Series at best. Putting this engine in the heavier vehicles really showed its limitations and the fact it didn't have the torque. Another one that's legendary, and virtually every car lover, car enthusiast, and certainly any BMW enthusiast loves the BMW N52, which is the predecessor to the previous engine we just mentioned. It's a 3-liter inline 6, no turbos, nope, no direct injection. Forget that nonsense. These ran from 2004 to about 2015, had variable valve timing with the double vanos, as well as Valvetronic systems. Meant it was highly efficient, great performance, could breathe, and it was absolute performance monster, at least for the size of engine. Some said there were some pocking marks and some potential challenges with deterioration and corrosion within the case because the block itself was a combination of magnesium and aluminum. It wasn't always the best, but take care of the oil services, make sure you had good coolant, and drive it in a spirited way meant that you can usually avoid some of those problems. A big reason these were good for 250 to 300,000 miles is because the inherent balance of an inline 6-cylinder just meant that it idled smoothly. There was less vibration in the chassis, less vibration in the engine, less vibration in the transmission. It was a smooth runner, and with a little bit of basic maintenance, these could run easily 500,000 kilometers. They were bulletproof. Now, this is kind of where the beginning of the end started with the plastic parts under the hood, because that's some of the drawbacks. They started introducing more of the plastic, cooling lines, water pumps, thermostat parts, more of the edges of the radiator. More of these parts became more plastic under the hood. And like they say, plastic fantastic. So that generally meant a few more coolant leaks than you were hoping for, especially with higher miles. Replace those parts, move on. Vanos failures, that was another potential failure. We've even seen it in Lexus. They've had their Vanos system problems with Lexus and Toyota as well, where of course some of their 3.5 liter V6s had some of their variable valve timing hydraulic lines rupture. That was a bulletin, a recall. Okay, it's no different over here in BMW land. It's just the nature of the business. Cracked thermostat housings, oil leaks from the valve covers and the gaskets, bottom pan gaskets, you name it. They did tend to weep a bit of oil with a little bit of time, especially when you have aluminum engines. That heating cooling cycles does create a little extra strain and twisting within the joints, and the mating surfaces meant that you could get a few premature leaks. The electric water pump, don't get me started. This is one of the few areas that I really can't stand. My N54 had the electric water pump, absolutely brutal. They fail, they overheat, they crack the housing. They're just not built to last. I know in the N54, because it's turbocharged, it's even worse. A lot of the extra heat in there meant that you're changing that out 50, 60, 70,000 miles. These will go, 50% longer on average, but it is a potential failure point. The N52 can be found in a plethora of wonderful non-turbocharged BMWs from the early 90s, like the BMW E90, the E91, and of course the E92. Those were all 3 Series cars, if you didn't know. The E65 Series, of course, not including the M5, which was an S85, an entirely different engine with the V10. The X3 and the Z4. So typically many of the BMWs that were in the early to mid 2000s often carried a derivative of this engine. It was so long lasting, so reliable, so robust. It didn't matter that your neighbor has a 4-cylinder Camry. There's a high possibility that this engine will outlast it. The next engine I can't express enough. It is absolutely legendary, and I'm currently in the market trying to find another one because I had an X5 35D. That's right, it had the M57 3-liter inline 6-cylinder turbo diesel engine. Absolutely amazing car. This engine was in service from 1998 to about 2013. We had it in our 2009 X5 35D, and we loved every single minute. There was a few problems close to the end of the life, but I'll share that in a sec. Because a big part of the reason for its durability, and not just for the fact that it won Ward's Engines of the Year award many times over, it was such a legendary vehicle. A straight 6 diesel with a turbocharger and the common rail fuel injection system. A big part of its longevity is the cast iron block. We all know that's best for diesel engines with a high compression. Big reason it lasts is because of that cast iron block. It was overbuilt, it was over-engineered, it was under-stressed, and that's a reason why these vehicles last 250, 300,000 miles all day long. As a matter of fact, a lot of people tune them. We eventually sold ours. We were just looking to move on to something else. But at the end of the day, I look back in retrospect, the new owner was going to do a full delete. Get rid of the EGR, the DEF fluid, all of that, make that scrap go away, retune it, and then you can pump out an extra 100, 150 pound-feet of torque and do so reliably. Some issues were the swirl flaps. We all know about that. You can get them removed. That was one fix. Injector failures with high mileage. Guess what? We had one injector that actually started failing on us, start shorting out and causing problems, misfire, and it's failed to run. And of course, we had to get that fixed. It costs us about $2,000 for one injector. They're not cheap, but they don't fail that often. Glow plug issues in extremely cold climate. Let me just tell you this. With a strong battery, we only ended up changing a glow plug at the point of we were at about 120,000 miles, and we changed some plugs. But at the end of the day, they run ruthlessly. Minus 30, minus 35 Celsius, and it actually still starts as long as you have a good battery. Turbocharger wear, of course, with age. And of course, if you neglect some of your oil changes, that's going to take a toll. Don't neglect the timing chain. Of course, a lot of that has to do with inspections from time to time. And most importantly, do frequent oil services. As we all know that diesel engines produce a lot of carbon, and carbon creates all that extra sludge in the engine. So doing more frequent oil changes helps extend the life of your turbochargers, your timing chains, the ramps, and everything just lasts a lot longer when you're doing frequent services. These can be found in vehicles like the 330D, the 530D, the X5 35D, 7 Series diesels. Look for the glorious M55 6-cylinder diesel engine, and you will definitely be good for hundreds of thousands of miles. I'm still sorry that we sold ours. Before I get to number 5 of the most reliable BMWs ever, I want to throw an honorable mention. I had an M50 engine that came in our E36 320i, which was a 2-liter inline 6-cylinder engine. super silky smooth. We had the ZF transmission. The vehicle was absolutely amazing. I rode the wheels off that. I drove it for hundreds of thousands of miles. I used it to haul concrete and construction materials. We daily drove it. We highly drove it. We did a little bit of maintenance. I think I did a thermostat on it once and a valve cover gasket. Outside of that, the car was absolutely impeccable. Yeah, window regulator went on it, thermostat went on it, and a couple cooling lines. But outside of that, that car was amazing, and it went for hundreds of thousands of miles. The M50 is definitely one to think about. So if you're thinking maybe older E36 cars, definitely worth a look. And we're going to talk about one I've featured before on the channel, and I've talked about this through and through. From 2015 up to current, BMW introduced what they call the B58 engine, which is a 3-liter inline 6-cylinder engine. Twin scroll, that's right, one turbo. Twin scroll gives you best of both worlds. It's absolutely legendary. Now, early generations had some issues with some plastic oil pumps. Of course, that got rectified around 2019, but these are absolutely amazing because the later models also had what Toyota was bragging about in their Toyota and Lexus products, direct and port fuel injection, which also came in later generations of the B58, means you don't have the carbon fouling issue in the later models. It's absolutely amazing. It's also tunable. You can run 600-700 ponies without blowing it apart, and primarily on stock components. These engines came with a Valvetronic and Vanos system, both aluminum block and heads. Most consider this one of the most legendary and reliable modern-day BMW engines. As a matter of fact, of all engines right now, it's head-to-head with some of the very best. You can find the B58 in the F30, F32 series, of course, the 340s, and naturally that swung over to the 340s and 440s in the G series. Also the G30 of the 540, so 540 designation, anything with the 4.0 and late model is typically going to be the B58. So you're going to find it in just about everything from the X3, X4, X5, X6, and X7. Anything that has the 4.0 designation is going to carry a derivative of this B58 engine. It's absolutely amazing. Same thing with the Z4. And guess what? Toyota has gone and utilized the same engine. So you know they have faith and trust in this drivetrain that can be found in the Toyota Supra. 5 common problems typically found with the B58: oil filter housing cracks that can lead to leaks, of course, even collapsing oil filters if you extend your oil services, turbocharger, lube issues if you neglect the oil services. As I say, don't go with that 12,000 mile oil change business. That's crap. On top of it, coil packs, spark plug wear, but that's typical for any engine these days. And Valvetronic actuator failures in high stress use. We can't forget about the higher maintenance costs than some of the naturally aspirated engines that it preceded. And as well, plethora of coolant system problems. There are dual tanks for the cooling system. Just make sure that some people have complained that they seem to be going through coolant. They can't see a leak on the floor. They don't seem to be burning it, and yet it's consuming it. Take an eye. Watch out, maybe a smoke test, have your mechanic take a look at it. You really shouldn't be consuming too much coolant. You shouldn't be consuming too much oil either. It is truly one of the most legendary engines and known for its durability, its tunability, and the fact that it's versatile. It's mated up with the ZF 8-speed, all-wheel drive. It means it can be used daily, every which way. Take it to the racetrack, tune it. It's a strong, durable vehicle, an engine that can be placed in their mid-size, larger vehicles like the X7 all the way down to a 240, which means that's a rocket ship on rails. The B58 inline 6 by BMW is arguably the best of all time BMW engines. Only second to that, possibly, maybe the S58, which is a sport-tuned version of that, found in the M cars, but the B58 is definitely built more for longevity, and you can't go wrong. I personally recommend going with a 20 and newer. It saves you some of the issues with the oil pumps, some of the improvements on the fuel system, and of course, the heat encapsulation, which is part of all of the B58s, are a big reason why you don't get as many coolant leaks, the cracked fittings and hoses like you saw in previous models and previous engines like the N54 and the N55 before it. But on that note, be sure to check out the ins and outs. I share a video specifically what's going on with that B58, everything you need to know right there. I talk about the ups and downs and ins and outs. Hope to see each and every one real soon, everybody. Catch you then. Bye-bye.